Hey, greetings baseball fans. Another spring training in the books here in Southwest Florida. And we're going to wrap up basically all that happened here. I am, of course, Naples Daily News sports reporter, Scott Butherus. With me today is Collier County's favorite reliever turned realtor, Chris Resop. How you doing, Chris? Thanks for joining us again.
Good, Scott. How are you?
Well, let's start off. One of the big stories this camp was the final spring for David Ortiz. And he's kind of been an icon here. Like, you know, Boston's his town, undoubtedly. But for the last 20 years, like, Fort Myers in Southwest Florida has been his vacation home, I guess, so to speak. You know, you're in a kind of a unique position. You grew up around here, and then you also got to play in the organization with him. What has Ortiz meant to both this area and then baseball in general?
I mean, anytime you look at a guy that's lasted as long as he had in the big leagues alone, he's got 17 plus years, parts of 18 or 19 seasons. I mean, that's somebody that we all are inspired to be like. Everybody coming up as a young boy and you want to play in Major League Baseball, and any of these young kids coming up for their first or second year would do anything to have a career at that length, let alone a career in the big leagues at that level. He's been a role model. He's been a team leader. You look what he did for the city of Boston a few years back. Through an unfortunate circumstance, and he brought the city almost back together by some of his comments. And he did, and Boston came back, and he tried and did what he could to help that city rebound. He'll forever leave his legacy on the game in general, let alone, you know, Boston. I mean, he'll always be a big papi there. He's led them to 3 World Series championships. He's been the guy when they've needed him most, he's always stepped up. You know, the things that people don't see in this game are some of the things that he does off the field, in the clubhouse for some of the younger guys, the mentorship, the leadership, and the things that he can do for a club are they're hard to find. And he may be done playing, but I'd be hard-pressed to say that he's not going to come back and just fill some sort of role for that organization.
Yeah, being in the media and getting to, you know, up close and personal with him every spring, I'm going to miss him because he's definitely one of the most colorful guys in the game. He almost kind of, you know, reinvigorated the game. Just he's got that larger-than-life personality. This year he's going to be on a farewell tour, and you really have to talk about his legacy and what he's going to leave behind, because he really did just reinvent the designated hitter role. There is some questions, you know, he did admit to failing a drug test, and there's some clouds hanging over it, and the whole designated hitter thing, but is this guy a Hall of Famer?
I mean, you look at a guy, first of all, in my opinion, I think the designated hitter role is one of the most difficult out there. I mean, it's hard. Yes, he works on hitting, and that's his main focus. However, there's something to be said about playing the 3 outs every inning in the field that keeps you in the game. As a designated hitter, you're going to hit once every 3, maybe 4 innings, and you have to stay locked in for those 3 or 4 innings. It's a tough role. I mean, you ask a bench guy that doesn't get every day at bats, or all of a sudden has to jump in and stuff. It's tough. You're talking about a guy who's a 285 career hitter, over 500 home runs, 1,600 RBIs. Those are pretty good numbers. I mean, they're hard to. I think it's a difficult decision if he's not in the Hall of Fame someday, truthfully.
Well, let's stick with the Red Sox. And the beautiful thing about Ortiz is going through all this, he doesn't have to carry the offense the way he has in the past. He's got a lot of help, and watching this team this spring, that's a really good lineup. It's hard to get a gauge on the team as a whole, but that lineup is pretty scary. You see guys like Xander Bogaerts and Mookie Betts, who are going to be the next generation of this club, and you still have the veterans like Pedroia and Hanley Ramirez. You know, what do you see out of that offense, and is that going to be enough to kind of, you know, maybe silence some of the question marks they have on the pitching staff?
They have the potential to have one of the most impressive offensive lineups this year. I mean, you look at their 1 to their 9, I mean, they're solid. And the funny thing is now the last year or two, not much has been said about Pedroia, who's going to come in and he's going to hit your upper 200s to 300 every year. That's the type of player he is. You get Hanley, if he can have a rebound year and come back and be a 300 hitter like he's been known to be and hit 20 to 25 home runs. You've got Travis Shaw, who's come in and had an unbelievable spring and beat out Pablo Sandoval for the starting third base job. There's the potential to be really good. I think they're going to have one of the best defensive outfields in the game between you've got Betts, you've got Jackie Bradley, who is probably arguably one of the top 5 outfielders in baseball. And then you've got a platoon of Brock Holt, you've got Castillo, you've got Chris Young, who they brought in as a veteran outfielder to man left field between the 3 of them. I think that Boston's going to be really good this year. I think that they have some things to prove. They've got a lot of people that they're trying to prove wrong. I think David's going to want to go out on a high note. I think he's going to have a big role again off the field more so this year than I think ever. I think he's going to want to make sure he leaves that legacy behind and make sure he grooms some of these younger guys. I've talked to a few guys already this spring, how he's already taken them under his wing. Shaw specifically. I mean, you know, he's a big boy like David is. He could potentially be that type of player. You know, you never know. I think they're going to be really good. I do.
I was very impressed with Shaw this spring. His plate discipline for a guy that big is really good. He has a really good command of the strike zone. So it really wasn't a big surprise that he was able to beat out Pablo. The thing is, that AL East is pretty competitive because Toronto brings back pretty much that lineup. You talk about scary lineups, Toronto's got that. You know, the Yankees are always the Yankees. And, you know, having seen the Rays a couple times and talking with people around the game, they say the Rays might have the best young rotation. You know, what are the Red Sox going to have to do to kind of break through, you know, that crowd that could all possibly win that division?
I mean, first and foremost, the 1 through 5 starters, they're going to have to step it up. I mean, they're going to have to improve on some of the things that they did not do well last year. Going out and getting David Price, that was a big splash. You've got a solid number 1 who's going to give you 200 innings. He's going to win 10-plus games. That's his career. Porcello's going to have to step up this year. He's going to, and I see him having a rebound year. You've got some young starters. You've got Kelly. You just got a good group of young guys. I think they've gone out and made some good moves to shore up the bullpen. Their bullpen's going to be very good. You've got Kimbrel, who, you know, 9 times out of 10, or I could say 99 times out of 100, that 9th inning's wrapped up with him on the mound. They're going to be good. Some of the young arms they had in spring had some very good spring numbers and showed some really good signs of success.
Well, speaking of good lineups, the lineup right down the road with the Minnesota Twins, you know, that's not too shabby. And, you know, last year they surprised a lot of people, finishing second. You know, it wasn't really until this year that a lot of people expected that turnaround. They got it started a little bit early, and they bring back pretty much their entire team from last year. You know, what do you see out of that team, especially that young lineup? And you talk about Bradley being a great defensive center fielder. Having seen Buxton the last couple of years and then what he's done in spring training, he might give him a run for the money, correct?
I don't doubt you there. I think Jackie has a little bit more experience in the big leagues over Byron. He came up last year and he did pretty well. He had some struggles. I think he's a guy that's going to have learned from some of his mistakes. He's obviously got the tools and the skill sets to be a superstar. It's a matter of putting those skill sets together as one. He's a 5-tool player. It's just getting all 5 of those tools to work for you at the same time. But yes, I think if he lives up to his potential, he could be the best outfielder in the game. You know, the lineup for the Twins is not an area of concern for them this year. I think they're going to capitalize on what they did last year. Suzuki had a little bit of a down season for himself offensively. Joe Mauer, he hit 263, 265 last year. That is technically a down season for him. If Joe can bounce back and hit 280 to 300, Suzuki can do a little bit better. You've got the young guys. You've got Sano. You've got a young group of guys that are going to help carry that team, and along with some of their veterans. The offense is not the question. Their pitching is going to have to really step up. You know, they are, from their starting 5 specifically, I mean, those guys have to get you and put you in a situation to win a ball game. If they do, then you put it to the bullpen. But until you get to those situations, it's up to those 5 starters.
Yeah, watching that starting rotation has actually been pretty solid this year. And I think, you know, as much as you don't want to say it, maybe losing Irvin Santana for half a year actually helps him this year. Because, as you know, I mean, if you can take that time off, your arm can heal. And Santana's back throwing mid-90s there. Hughes looks like he's over whatever back problems kind of limited last year. And Gibson really looks like he's ready to make that next jump. You know, he's done a very good job that every year he's kind of progressed a little. I think that might not be a problem, but as you know, the Red Sox last year kind of did the same thing where they didn't have a bona fide ace, but they had lots of solid starters. Now, how that pans out for them, I don't know, but do you think maybe we'll see some of this young talent from the Twins, maybe or a late kind of trade, maybe if you see the Twins in contention?
I think so. I think the city of Minneapolis needs that from them. I think it's a move the Twins need to do. I think if they're in contention, as they were last deadline, sitting in first place, I think it's something that they need to move or make a big move, to help give them that extra push. At the end of the season, it wasn't necessarily the offense that kind of started to slack off, or not slack off, but downplay a little bit. It was the starting pitching or their staff in general. That's something that they're going to need to carry through 162 ball games. That's what is so challenging about the game. Is it is a long season. It's 162 games that you've got to get through to be there and to win your division. Injuries are a blessing and a curse to every organization. They're a curse because those are some of the, especially a big guy that you're counting on, like losing Santana last year. I think it hurt him. At the same time, it can be a blessing because some younger talent comes up and gets an opportunity to get some experience. So get over some of those bumps and grinds your first year. So year number 2, you're prepared, you've learned, you've grown, and now whether or not you start the year in the big leagues or down in AAA, you're one that they can call on and count on who's going to be prepared and have experience at that level.
Do you think that young team is prepared enough to make that jump? Because the Central is also a very tough division. Obviously, Kansas City has been in the World Series, the AL champ the last 2 seasons. Tigers made some big acquisitions. And Cleveland is always kind of a favorite for a dark horse candidate. Do you think the Twins have enough to take it?
I've always said that they got a taste of it, and that taste is so good that I think it was a good thing for them last year. I think they're coming in hungry this year, more so than last. They believe in themselves now that they have the capabilities to get back there, and I think that they're a stronger team this year than they were last. That's got to help carry them and give them some momentum into this season. And like I said, if their pitching staff can get them through, their offense is going to be there. And I think that they could potentially be another dark horse this year that could surprise a lot of people.
I think I agree with you. Well, thanks everyone so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Thank you for following along all spring. And hopefully we will be back next year to talk.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Chris.